The autumn air carried a sharpness, a chill that penetrated the cobblestones of Paris and seeped into the hearts of its people. In the shadow of the guillotine, a silent crowd gathered, their eyes fixed on the scaffold where a solitary figure stood. Marie Antoinette, once adorned in the finest silks and jewels, now wore a simple white dress, the color of ghosts and innocence lost. Her hair, shorn and ashen, whispered secrets of a fallen queen to the wind that swept through the Place de la Révolution. Around her, the city murmured, a low, unsteady hum, like the sea before a storm. She stepped forward, her hands bound, and gazed out at the sea of faces. Some were filled with hatred, others with pity, but most with a cold curiosity. The air was thick with the metallic tang of anticipation and the distant scent of wood smoke from the nearby fires. The blade above gleamed in the weak sunlight, a silent promise of swift finality. Her heartbeat, a steady drum echoing in her chest, matched the rhythm of the murmurs that rose and fell like the breath of a sleeping giant. The executioner approached, his presence a shadow against the backdrop of history unfolding. She climbed the steps with measured grace, each footfall a subtle defiance against the gravity of her fate. The crowd held its breath, the world pausing, a suspended moment on the edge of oblivion. Here stood Marie Antoinette, a queen without a throne, a mother without her children, a woman stripped bare before the gaze of a nation. But to understand how we got here, to this point of no return, where the past echoed with the weight of crowns and the future lay shrouded in uncertainty, we must journey back. Back to the halls of Versailles, the whispered intrigues, and the innocent laughter of a young girl destined for a kingdom she could never truly call her own. In the soft glow of dawn on November 2nd, 1755, Vienna awoke to the cry of a newborn. Marie Antoinette, daughter of Holy Roman Emperor Francis I and Empress Maria Theresa, took her first breath in the gilded halls of the Habsburg Palace. The air bristled with anticipation, the scent of lavender and beeswax lingering from the night's vigil. She was the 15th child in a family where power and responsibility were as abundant as the tapestries that adorned their walls. From her earliest days, Marie was enveloped in the opulence of the Habsburg court, a world where the soft rustle of silk gowns and the clinking of porcelain teacups formed the soundtrack of her youth. Her mother, Maria Theresa, was a formidable woman, a ruler who commanded respect and demanded excellence. Under her watchful eye, Marie learned the art of diplomacy, a skill she would later wield and be judged for in equal measure. The young archduchess was no stranger to the whispers that floated through the palace corridors. She was a pawn in a grand game of alliances, her future sealed by the ink of political treaties rather than the ink of love letters. At the tender age of 14, Marie was dispatched to a foreign land, France, a kingdom of grandeur and uncertainty. Her marriage to Louis Auguste, the Dauphin of France, was more than a union. It was a bond meant to strengthen the fragile ties between two of Europe's greatest powers. The journey to France was long, the road lined with the scent of pine and the chill of early spring. Marie's heart beat with trepidation as she crossed into her new homeland, leaving behind the familiar songs of Vienna for the foreign tongue of Versailles. Upon her arrival, she was greeted by the spectacle of the French court, a world where every glance, every gesture, was a calculated move on the chessboard of social hierarchy. Versailles was a palace of dreams, its walls echoing with the laughter of courtiers and the strains of violins. Yet beneath its gilded facade lay a simmering tension, a court divided between tradition and the winds of change. Here, Marie was expected to flourish, yet she found herself ensnared in a web of expectations and etiquette. Her Austrian origins cast a shadow, a reminder of her outsider status in a court that valued lineage as much as loyalty. Louis Auguste, who would become King Louis XVI, was a man of contradictions, shy yet determined, awkward yet earnest. He bore the weight of the crown with a quiet resolve, his reign shadowed by the specter of debt and discontent. Together, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of power, their union scrutinized by a nation hungry for stability. The French people, their lives intertwined with the whims of their rulers, watched and waited. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the smoke of wood fires in the narrow streets of Paris, where the common folk labored from dawn till dusk. Here, life was a tapestry of struggle and perseverance, a a stark contrast to the opulence of the royal court. As Marie indulged in the luxuries of Versailles, the people whispered tales of hardship, their voices carried on the wind like autumn leaves. Marie's extravagance became the stuff of legend, her penchant for lavish gowns and glittering jewels a point of contention in a country teetering on the brink of financial ruin. The halls of Versailles, once filled with music and mirth, now echoed with the murmur of dissent. The Queen's image, once that of a radiant young bride, was now clouded by scandal and suspicion. The ballrooms where she danced were now stages for whispered conspiracies, the air thick with the scent of intrigue and candle wax. Amidst this turmoil, Marie sought solace in the Petit Trianon, a refuge from the prying eyes of the court. Here she fashioned a world of simplicity and charm, a pastoral escape where she could breathe freely. Yet, even in this sanctuary, the past lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the responsibilities she could never fully escape. As the years passed, the pressures of her position mounted. France's economy faltered, its coffers drained by wars and excess. The people's cries for reform grew louder, their patience waning with each passing day. The revolution was a storm on the horizon, its rumblings felt in the very foundations of the monarchy. Marie and Louis stood at the precipice of change, their fate intertwined with the destiny of a nation. In the twilight of her reign, Marie's thoughts turned to her homeland, the mountains of Austria, a distant memory etched in her heart. The court of Vienna, with its strict protocols and familiar faces, seemed worlds away from the turmoil of France. Yet in her heart, she carried the lessons of her youth, the courage and conviction instilled by a mother who ruled with an iron will. As the revolution unfolded, the palace that had been her home became a prison, its gilded gates locked against the tide of history. Marie, once a symbol of elegance and excess, was now a figure of defiance, a queen stripped of her crown but not her dignity. Her life, a tapestry of triumph and tragedy, was woven into the very fabric of France, a legacy that would endure long after the guillotine's blade fell. In the quiet moments before dawn, as the world held its breath, Marie Antoinette reflected on the choices that had led her here. Her story, like the soft murmur of the Seine, was a testament to the complexities of power and privilege, a cautionary tale whispered through the ages. And so, as the shadows lengthened and the stars faded into the morning sky, Marie's journey came to an end. Her legacy, a mosaic of myth and memory, remains a testament to a time when the world stood on the brink of revolution, and a queen dared to dream amidst the chaos. In the grand halls of Versailles, where golden chandeliers cast a warm glow upon the polished floors, Marie Antoinette's rise unfolded with the grace and inevitability of a tide coming in. Her presence was like a delicate perfume, a mix of lilacs and rosewater that lingered in the air long after she had passed. She had stepped into this world as a young bride, a mere 14 years of age, and had swiftly become a figure of both fascination and scrutiny. The French court, with its intricate dance of alliances and rivalries, was a world unto itself, and Marie Antoinette was its sparkling jewel. As she settled into this life, the young queen found herself navigating the labyrinthine corridors of power. Her marriage to Louis Auguste, now King Louis XVI, was initially one of political necessity, yet within the opulent confines of Versailles, it blossomed into something more tender, more intricate. The king, with his soft-spoken manner and gentle eyes, was a steady presence by her side, albeit often overshadowed by her vivacity. Together they represented a new era, a fresh start for a nation that teetered on the brink of change. Yet beneath the surface of this gilded existence, tensions simmered. The court was a place of whispered secrets and hidden daggers, where every gesture was dissected, every word weighed. Marie Antoinette, with her Austrian heritage and her penchant for luxury, was both adored and resented. Her fondness for extravagant gowns and lavish parties earned her the nickname Madame Despised, a moniker whispered in the shadowed corners of salons and echoed in the pamphlets that circulated through the streets of Paris. But in those early days of her reign, the queen remained blissfully unaware of the storm that brewed beyond the palace gates. She immersed herself in the pleasures of the Petit Trianon, her private retreat where she could escape the stifling formality of court life. It was here, amidst the scent of blooming jasmine and the soft rustle of wind through the trees, that she could be herself, a young woman with dreams and desires far removed from the responsibilities of monarchy. The people of France, however, saw a different picture. To them, Marie Antoinette was a symbol of excess, a foreign queen detached from their struggles. The country was mired in debt, the result of costly wars and lavish expenditures, and the plight of the common folk was becoming increasingly desperate. Bread prices soared, and hunger gnawed at the bellies of those who looked upon Versailles with a mixture of envy and resentment. In the salons and taverns of Paris, debates raged about the future of the nation. Enlightenment ideas, like seeds carried on the wind, took root in the minds of a populace hungry for change. Philosophers such as Voltaire and Rousseau spoke of liberty, equality, and fraternity, their words igniting a fervor that spread like wildfire through the cobbled streets. To many, the monarchy stood as an outdated relic, a barrier to progress and prosperity. Yet within the confines of the palace, these murmurs of discontent seemed distant, almost unreal. Marie Antoinette continued to host elaborate balls, where music and laughter filled the night air, and the clink of crystal glasses resonated like a chorus of tiny bells. She commissioned grand portraits, each one a testament to her beauty and status, her image immortalized in oil and canvas. But even as she reveled in her role as queen, there were moments when the weight of her position pressed heavily upon her. She was acutely aware of the eyes that watched her every move, the voices that whispered her name with equal parts admiration and scorn. In the quiet of her chambers, she would sometimes gaze out over the manicured gardens of Versailles, wondering if another path might have led to a different fate. Could she have bridged the chasm between court and country? Could she have been the queen her people longed for, a beacon of hope in troubled times? These questions lingered, unanswered, as the years passed and the world around her shifted in ways both subtle and profound. The turning points came and went, like pages turning in the great book of history. There were moments when decisions could have been made differently, when alliances could have been forged, when concessions could have been offered. But in the grand scheme of things, the forces at play were vast and complex, a tapestry woven from countless threads of human ambition and desire. As the revolution began to stir, like the rumble of a distant thunderstorm, Marie Antoinette found herself at the center of a whirlwind. The people demanded change, and the monarchy, with all its grandeur and history, was suddenly vulnerable. In the salons of Paris, the talk turned to action, and the streets echoed with the footsteps of those who would shape the future of France. Yet, amidst the chaos, there were still those who believed in the Queen. To them, she was not just a symbol, but a woman of courage and conviction. They saw her efforts to reform the court, her attempts to understand the plight of her subjects, and they held fast to the hope that she might yet steer the nation toward a brighter future. But history, like life, is rarely kind to those caught in its tide. The events that unfolded were beyond the control of any one person, and the revolution, once set in motion, took on a life of its own. The monarchy, with all its splendor and tradition, faced its greatest test, and Marie Antoinette found herself swept along by forces she could neither understand nor contain. As the night deepened and the stars cast their gentle glow upon the palace, a sense of inevitability settled over Versailles. The rise that had seemed so assured, so unstoppable, was now fraught with uncertainty. The whispers of change had become a roar, and the Queen, once at the pinnacle of power, now stood on the precipice of destiny. In the sultry heat of July 14th, 1789, the air in Paris was thick with anticipation. The cobblestones of the bustling city vibrated under the hurried steps of thousands, a cacophony that spoke of change. Smoke curled up from the torched Bastille, a fortress once imposing, now a symbol of the old regime's crumbling power. The revolution had begun its inexorable march, and with it came a tide that would sweep away the world as Marie Antoinette knew it. Far from the chaos, in the gilded halls of Versailles, Marie Antoinette stood by a window, the silk of her gown whispering with her every movement. She gazed out over the manicured gardens, her expression pensive. The sun's rays filtered through the glass, casting a golden light that belied the storm gathering in the distance. Louis XVI, her husband, had been indecisive as ever. He had called a meeting of the Estates General, the first in over a century, hoping to quell the unrest. But the floodgates had opened, and now the murmurs of revolution echoed through the palace corridors. In the weeks that followed, the air in Versailles grew heavy with tension. The court, once a place of laughter and intrigue, now whispered of rebellion and betrayal. Marie Antoinette, once the life of opulent soirees, found herself increasingly isolated. Her every move scrutinized, her every gesture dissected by those hungry for scandal. The Petit Trianon, her private retreat, offered little solace against the tide of public opinion turning against her. By October, the crisis reached a fever pitch. The Women's March on Versailles brought thousands of Parisian women to the gates of the palace, their demands clear and voices resolute. Bread was scarce, and hunger drove them to desperate measures. They surged forward, their cries echoing in the chilly dawn like a dirge. Inside, Marie Antoinette heard the distant roar, a sound that chilled her to the bone. On the morning of October 6, 1789, the royal family was forced to leave Versailles. The journey to Paris was a slow procession, the roads lined with citizens whose faces bore a mixture of curiosity and disdain. As their carriage rolled onward, the Queen's thoughts were a tempest. Memories of masked balls and candlelit dinners clashed with the stark reality of their new existence. The Tuileries Palace awaited them, a gilded cage in the heart of a city simmering with revolutionary fervor. Days turned into months, and the revolution blazed on. The National Assembly worked tirelessly to dismantle the structures of the old regime, each new decree echoing through the halls of power like a hammer on an anvil. For Marie Antoinette, each day brought a fresh challenge. Her letters to her family in Austria went unanswered, her pleas for aid met with silence. The weight of her isolation was palpable, a constant companion in the dimly lit rooms of the Tuileries. The summer of 1791 brought a glimmer of hope. Plans for escape took shape, whispers of a daring flight to safety. The Queen's heart quickened at the thought of freedom, the chance to leave behind the specter of revolution. On the night of June 20th, the plan was set in motion. Disguised as commoners, the royal family slipped into the night, their carriage creaking under the weight of their dreams. But the journey was fraught with peril. The roads were rough, the night air biting against their skin. As dawn broke, they reached Varennes, a small town near the border. Yet fate was not kind. Recognized by a local postmaster, their escape was thwarted. The bells tolled ominously as the family was detained, their hope of freedom dashed against the unyielding reality of their situation. Returned to Paris, the atmosphere was charged with anger and betrayal. The failed escape only fueled the revolutionary fervor, painting the Queen as a foreign antagonist in the narrative of France's struggle for liberty. The air in the Tuileries grew colder, the rooms echoing with the emptiness of unfulfilled dreams. In the autumn of 1792, the monarchy was abolished, and with it, the last vestiges of Marie Antoinette's royal identity. She was no longer a queen, but a prisoner, a symbol of the ancient regime in a city that clamored for change. The trial that followed was swift and merciless, her fate sealed by a revolution that would not be denied. On October 16, 1793, the morning was gray and somber as Marie Antoinette was led to the Place de la Révolution. The air was heavy with the scent of rain, a fitting backdrop for the final act of her life's tragic play. As she approached the guillotine, the crowd fell silent, the weight of history pressing down on every soul present. With a dignity that belied her circumstances, she climbed the steps, the wood cool beneath her feet. Her last words, spoken with quiet resolve, were a farewell to a world that had turned its back on her. The blade fell, swift and sure, and with it, the story of Marie Antoinette came to a close, a life of opulence and tragedy, of power misused and misunderstood. As night descended over Paris, the city seemed to exhale, a collective breath released in the wake of her passing. The streets, once alight with revolutionary fervor, were now cloaked in the quiet of reflection. And in the distance, the Seine flowed on, indifferent to the tumult of human affairs. In the quiet of that night, as the city slept, the legacy of Marie Antoinette lingered, a reminder of the delicate balance between power and perception, and the enduring cost of misjudgment in the theater of history. In the quiet of a dimly lit chamber within the Tuileries Palace, the air hung heavy with unspoken fears. The muffled sounds of Paris, a city teetering on the edge, seeped through the thick stone walls, whispering of unrest and revolution. Marie Antoinette, once the radiant symbol of French royalty, now found herself a prisoner in all but name. The ornate furnishings around her, once a source of comfort, now felt alien and cold, reminders of a world that seemed to be slipping away. It was the summer of 1791, and Marie sat in contemplation, her thoughts a turbulent sea. The lavish silks of her dress rustled softly as she moved, a faint echo of the grandeur she had always known. The plan for escape was fraught with peril, yet it offered a glimmer of hope. Beyond the palace walls, France was changing irrevocably. The revolution's fervor, ignited by ideas of liberty and equality, threatened to consume the monarchy itself. And within this storm, the queen, often misunderstood and reviled, sought a path to safety for her family. The night was still, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the gardens below, caught by a gentle breeze. It was on such a night that the royal family attempted their fateful flight to Varennes. Disguised and under cover of darkness, they slipped away from their gilded cage, hearts pounding with every step. The carriage that awaited them was a sturdy beast, its leather seats worn but reliable. As they traveled through the countryside, the rhythmic clatter of hooves on cobblestone offered a lullaby of sorts, a temporary escape from the anxiety that gnawed at their souls. Yet fate, with its inexorable hand, had other plans. The journey was long, the roads treacherous, and the townsfolk wary. At every stop, the air grew thick with suspicion, eyes lingering a moment too long, whispers trailing in their wake. It was in the town of Varennes, under the dim glow of lanterns, that their flight came to an abrupt end. Recognized and detained, the royal family was escorted back to Paris, their hopes dashed, their future uncertain. Back in the Tuileries, the atmosphere was one of palpable tension. The revolution marched on, its pace quickening with each passing day. Marie Antoinette, once the carefree Dauphine, now bore the weight of a kingdom on her shoulders. Her every move scrutinized, every word dissected. The court that had once adored her now watched with skepticism, the people outside its gates with disdain. Yet within the confines of her mind, she remained resilient. She thought of her children, their innocent faces a beacon in the darkness. She thought of Louis, his burden as king growing heavier with each decree from the National Assembly. Most of all, she thought of France, a nation at a crossroads, its destiny unfolding in ways she could scarcely comprehend. As the months wore on, the revolution's fervor showed no signs of abating. The summer of 1792 brought with it a heat that seemed to mirror the passions of the people. In August, the storming of the Tuileries marked a pivotal moment. The palace, once a fortress of power, was overrun by a tide of revolutionary zeal. The clamor of voices, the shouts of liberté, égalité, fraternité, echoed through its halls, a cacophony of change that shook the very foundations of the monarchy. Amidst the chaos, Marie Antoinette stood defiant, a figure of dignity in the face of unimaginable upheaval. Her gaze was steady, her resolve unyielding. Yet within her heart, there lay a profound sadness, an understanding that the world as she knew it was slipping away, piece by piece. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and sweat, a testament to the struggle that would reshape a nation. In the months that followed, the royal family was moved to the temple, a fortress turned prison. The walls here were stark and unadorned, a far cry from the opulence of Versailles. The clinking of chains and the echo of footsteps in the corridors served as constant reminders of their captivity. Yet within this austere setting, Marie found a semblance of solace in the company of her children, her love for them a balm against the harsh realities of their confinement. The trial of Louis XVI in January 1793 was a somber affair, the courtroom a stage for the final act in the monarchy's long history. The air was tense with anticipation as witnesses were called, evidence presented, and verdicts rendered. Outside, the streets of Paris buzzed with the fervor of revolution, the cries of the people rising in a crescendo of determination. When the guillotine's blade fell on January 21st, a collective gasp seemed to ripple through the city, the sound of history being rewritten. Marie Antoinette, now a widow and a queen without a throne, faced her own trial with a quiet dignity. Her composure, unbroken even in the face of adversity, spoke volumes of her character, a testament to the strength that lay beneath the facade of extravagance. As autumn descended upon Paris, the leaves turning to hues of gold and crimson, the end drew near for Marie. On October 16, 1793, in the Place de la Révolution, she faced her final moments with grace. The crowd, a sea of faces etched with anticipation, watched as the last Queen of France took her place beneath the blade. The sky above was a tapestry of gray, the air cool with the promise of rain, a fitting backdrop for the conclusion of her storied life. In the silence that followed, the atmosphere was one of reflection and somber realization. Marie Antoinette's legacy, a complex tapestry of power and privilege, of misunderstanding and misrepresentation, was sealed. Her story, a cautionary tale of the perils of opulence and the shifting tides of public sentiment, lingered in the hearts of the people and the annals of history. As the echoes of the revolution faded into the night, the city of Paris resumed its restless slumber. The cobblestones, worn by years of footsteps, bore silent witness to the era that had passed. And in the quiet of the night, a new France emerged, shaped by the dreams and struggles of those who had dared to imagine a different world. As the dawn broke over Paris on October 17, 1793, the city emerged from the shadows of an execution that had resounded through its cobbled streets and across its bustling squares. The air was heavy with the murmur of disbelief, a collective breath held in anticipation of change. Marie Antoinette was gone, her life extinguished beneath the sharp blade of revolution. Yet her presence lingered, a ghostly echo in the minds of those who had watched, or turned away, as the guillotine performed its grim duty. The Place de la Révolution, where the Queen met her fate just a day before, was now silent, save for the distant tolling of church bells and the occasional cry of a street vendor trying to lure back the life and commerce that once thrived there. The air was cool and carried with it the scent of rain-soaked stone and the faint aroma of bread baking in nearby ovens. It was as if the city itself was awakening from a fevered dream, uncertain of its new reality. In the days following the execution, the streets of Paris were filled with a strange mix of jubilation and mourning. Some saw the death of Marie Antoinette as a symbol of liberation, a step toward the egalitarian society that the revolution promised. For others, it was a moment of profound loss, a severing of ties with a past that, despite its decadence, had been their world. The scent of change was pungent, almost acrid, like smoke from a fire that had yet to fully extinguish. The revolutionaries, emboldened by their victory, set to work solidifying their vision of France. The National Convention continued to meet, the echo of Marie Antoinette's trial still fresh in the minds of its members. Laws were drafted and decrees issued, each document carrying the weight of a new era. Yet amidst these grand plans, the fabric of daily life was being rewoven. Families gathered in cramped apartments, their conversations punctuated by the creak of wooden floors and the distant clatter of horse-drawn carts. They spoke in hushed tones of the future, of hope and fear, of bread and hunger. In the quiet corners of Paris, there were those who mourned privately. The royalists, though now silent and scattered, carried the weight of their loss like a shroud. In the dimly lit rooms of the Tuileries Palace, now merely a relic of its former grandeur, dust settled on once gleaming furniture, and the air was filled with the musty scent of neglect. The palace, stripped of its occupants and its purpose, stood as a silent testament to a world that had vanished. Beyond Paris, the countryside stirred with its own anxieties. Farmers, whose lives had been dictated by the rhythms of the land, now faced the uncertainty brought about by political upheaval. The autumn harvest was underway, the fields alive with the rustle of wind through golden stalks of wheat. Yet beneath the surface, a simmering tension lingered, an unease that echoed the larger turmoil of a nation in the throes of transformation. The stories of those who survived the revolutionary fervor became threads in the tapestry of a new France. In the bustling markets and quiet taverns, whispers of Marie Antoinette's last days circulated. Some spoke of her dignity in the face of death, while others recounted tales of her perceived excesses with a sense of vindication. The truth of her life had become as elusive as the flicker of candlelight in a drafty room, a blend of fact and fiction, myth and memory. As winter approached, the chill in the air served as a reminder of the harsh realities that lay ahead. The streets of Paris, though vibrant with the colors of revolution, were also marked by the struggles of a populace grappling with the aftermath of upheaval. The scent of wood smoke mingled with the tang of frost as the city braced itself for the long months to come. In the heart of this transformed Paris, the legacy of Marie Antoinette lingered. Her life, a narrative of opulence and oblivion, had become woven into the larger story of France. The revolution, with its promises of liberty, equality, and fraternity, moved forward, but the memory of the fallen queen remained, a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fragile balance between power and the will of the people. As the final leaves fell from the trees, carpeting the city in a tapestry of gold and brown, the world that Marie Antoinette had known faded further into the past. Yet in the quiet moments, as night descended and the stars cast their pale light over the city, the story of her life continued to whisper through the shadows, a testament to a time of grandeur and despair, of dreams and disillusionment. And so, as Paris settled into the rhythm of a new dawn, the echoes of Marie Antoinette's story lingered, a gentle reminder of the enduring interplay between history and human lives. The city, ever resilient, moved forward, its pulse steady and unyielding, as the legacy of its last queen became but one thread in the vast tapestry of its history. In the silence of the night, as sleep enfolded the weary and the hopeful alike, her story continued to unfold, carried on the whispers of the wind. In the quiet aftermath of her life, the legacy of Marie Antoinette unfolded like a tapestry woven with threads of complexity and contradiction. Her end, as final as the fall of the guillotine, did not silence her story. Instead, it resonated through the centuries, echoing in the halls of history with a lingering, haunting presence, an enigma wrapped in the silk of myth and memory. The dawn of the 19th century found France in flux, a nation reeling from revolution and rebirth, seeking its identity amid the rubble of monarchy. Marie Antoinette, once vilified as Madame Déficit, became an emblem of a bygone era, her image reshaped by those who survived her. To some, she was a cautionary tale of excess and detachment, a queen who danced while her people starved. To others, she was a martyr, a misunderstood woman caught in the tidal wave of history's unforgiving march. As the years slipped by, the narrative of Marie Antoinette's life began to change. Novels and plays painted her with strokes of sympathy, casting her as a tragic heroine trapped by circumstance and birthright. The world, it seemed, was not yet done with her. In the candlelit rooms of Parisian salons, whispers of her grace and beauty mingled with tales of her aloofness and extravagance. Her story leapt from the pages of history books into the realms of art and culture, where fact met fiction in a delicate dance. The phrase, "let them eat cake," though likely never uttered by Marie Antoinette, became synonymous with her name, a testament to how swiftly and thoroughly perception can overshadow reality. It was a line that encapsulated the chasm between the ruling class and the common people, a chasm that the revolution sought to bridge with blood and hope. And yet, Marie's true voice was often lost in the cacophony of revolution, her intentions obscured by the shadows of her gilded world. In the aftermath of her execution, the French Revolution carved new paths for governance and society. It spurred waves of change across Europe, toppling thrones and challenging the divine rights of kings. The echoes of its turmoil reached far beyond France, igniting fires of reform and rebellion in lands near and distant. But amid these sweeping shifts, Marie Antoinette's legacy remained a thread of continuity, a reminder of the old world even as the new one took shape. As the 19th century unfurled, her story was revisited time and again, each retelling adding layers to her complex image. Artists and writers, from Alexandre Dumas to Stefan Zweig, found inspiration in her life, casting her in roles both vilified and venerated. In paintings, she stood regal and serene, a vision of grace beneath her powdered wig. In literature, she became a symbol of the fall of the ancient regime, a woman whose fate was inexorably tied to the downfall of monarchy. Yet Marie Antoinette's legacy extended beyond mere symbolism. Her life and death sparked debates about power, privilege, and the responsibilities of leadership. She became a touchstone for discussions on the nature of empathy and the dangers of disconnect between rulers and their subjects. Her story, though rooted in the past, offered lessons for the present, a reminder of the fragility of power and the importance of understanding those one is meant to lead. In modern times, Marie Antoinette's life continues to captivate and confound. Cinema and television have breathed new life into her image, each portrayal a reflection of contemporary values and preoccupations. From grandiose epics to intimate dramas, her story is retold, reimagined, a canvas upon which the complexities of human nature are explored. Some see her as a victim of circumstance, a young girl thrust into a world of political machinations beyond her control. Others view her as a symbol of excess, an embodiment of the decadence that drove a nation to revolution. The truth perhaps lies somewhere in between, shaded by the nuances of her character and the tumult of her times. In the quiet moments, as night folds around the city of Paris, the echoes of Marie Antoinette's legacy linger in the air. Her life, a tapestry of opulence and tragedy, continues to intrigue those who seek to understand the past and its influence on the present. Her story, woven into the fabric of history, invites reflection on the nature of power, the complexities of human character, and the inexorable march of time. As the world moves forward, the lessons drawn from her life remain relevant, a testament to the enduring impact of a queen whose name became synonymous with a pivotal moment in history. Marie Antoinette's legacy is a reminder that the stories we tell about the past are ever evolving, shaped by the present and the lens through which we view it. In this way, the memory of Marie Antoinette lives on, not as a relic of history, but as a living narrative, a story of rise and fall, of grace and folly, of humanity in all its flawed and fascinating forms. And as the final whispers of her tale fade into the night, one is left with a sense of wonder and respect for the complexities of a life that continues to captivate long after the lights of Versailles have dimmed. In the quietude of night, where shadows whisper secrets of the past, we find ourselves pondering the tale of Marie Antoinette, a story woven with threads of ambition, love, power, and the inexorable march toward fate. Her life, a tapestry of opulence and despair, invites reflection upon the human condition. Beneath the silken gowns and glittering chandeliers lay a heart that yearned for acceptance, a spirit caught in the tides of history, struggling against the currents of expectation and tumult. Ambition, that relentless force that propels us toward dreams and desires, was her constant companion. Yet as with many who reach for the stars, it was her downfall. In the corridors of Versailles, ambition blossomed into excess, and the line between want and need blurred, casting shadows over her legacy. But can we blame a young queen for seeking joy in a world that demanded much and gave little? Love, too, played its part in this saga. From the tender days of her youth to the fervent loyalty she displayed to her family, love was a motive, an anchor in the storm. Yet it was also a tormentor, for the affections of a queen were not her own to bestow freely. They were bound by duty, scrutinized by the court, and judged by the nation. Power, that intoxicating force, is a double-edged sword. In her hands, it was both a scepter and a chain. The power to enchant, to influence, to incite change, yet also the power to destroy, to alienate, to fall. In wielding it, she became both architect and victim of her destiny. Failure and survival dance a delicate waltz in this narrative. Her fall was spectacular, yet in her final moments, there lay a dignity that transcended the chaos, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As you lie in the embrace of night, let this story linger, a reminder of our shared journey through history, of lives lived in pursuit of dreams, and of the quiet, enduring strength that lies within each of us. Drift into sleep, carrying with you the echoes of Marie Antoinette's world, a world where the past whispers its lessons and the future awaits, softly, patiently.